no rebuilds.
Yeah, there aren't those hateful cards. Hercules Recall.
Yes.
I mean, if you go through the list of cards that are really great against Affinity, I mean, there are a lot of them. I think if Affinity ever became a Tier 1 deck in Legacy,
It can't.
because the answers to it are so good.
Yeah, Kataki, as you said earlier, Energy Flux, way too many super awesome hate cards, but the thing is, they're just not played because Affinity's just not played.
Yeah, so it's kind of a gamble deck in that you try to figure out whether or not people are packing hate for you. I think the danger is that because you're playing a creature deck, a lot of
the splash hate.
Yeah, there's a lot of splash hate, and then once again, the combo decks just don't care.
Exactly. There are definitely a lot of matchups that are very hard for Affinity, but I think Rug Delver is not one of them. I think Rug Delver is one of the decks that Affinity can certainly beat.
Yeah, so if Henry can make it through this matchup, he has got to hope that he plays Rug Delver in the finals. His deck is Blue White Red Delver.
Red Delver, yeah.
His deck is very good against Delver decks. Probably the matchup he needs to avoid is if he plays against Elves in the finals.
Yeah, can't imagine the robots are taking out the Elvish race.
Yeah, there's very little interaction in that matchup, and I would think the Elf deck could be a heavy favorite if that matchup happens.
A full turn faster, I would say, at the very least.
Yeah, probably more than one turn.
Yeah, maybe even 1.5 turns.
Yeah.
Yep, I would agree with that. And Spencer would be on the play, correct? If they were to meet in the finals?
If they met in the finals, the Elf deck would get to be on the play as well.
Yeah.
Spencer, as the 5 seed, would get to be on the play. Henry is the lowest seed left in the tournament, so he will be playing all his matches on the draw regardless of results here.
Although, Affinity never really feels like it's on the draw because it always has more permanence than its opponent anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last game he played a modest 3 spells on turn 1.
Yeah, and we were like, what a slow draw.
That's pretty average.
Yeah.
I always love it when you see the ones that are like 6 cards on turn 1. Those are some of my favorite draws where it's...
And they're untapping with 4 mana and Tezzeret as their last card.
I love it. It's like turn 1, land, Mox Opal, 4 creatures go, and like, all right, next second turn to like draw my land, cranial plating, equip. He's like, oh my gosh.
This guy.
Equip, hit you for 14.
Yeah. And all of WotC hangs their head in shame. What have we done? What have we done?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, cranial plating was such a powerful card. For a while, it was the only card banned in Pauper on Magic Online.
Yeah, for a long time.
Yeah. Recently, it's been joined by a couple by all the Storm cards.
Yeah, the ban list is 5 or 6 cards long now, but for a very, very long time of that format, cranial plating was
the ban list was one card long.
Yeah, the only card banned in the entire format.
Which really speaks volumes about how good it is.
Yeah. Wasn't cranial plating part of a cycle?
Yeah, it's actually better than the other cards in the cycle.
Oh, shocking. What do the other ones do?
Well, what is it? The blue one gives you 1/0 and unblockable, I think.
All right.
I'm going to get these ones wrong. I haven't played these in forever.
Don't embarrass
it's Nurok
yourself.
Stealth Suit. I want to say the green one gives you trample or something dumb.
Oh, bro.
Yeah, they're not as good as cranial plating.
Not as good as, +8, +0. Yeah, that's fair.
They're not as good as +8. So remember that cranial plating was the black card in the cycle.
Right.
Because as you can see, one of the problems with cycles is that it's not really a black card. They're all exactly the same.
Yeah. In my life, I think I've seen the double black instant equip used once. I think in my entire life.
The double black is used a decent amount because it's instant speed.
Right. That is the only difference. But I honestly think I've seen it used once.
Yeah, it's used. It's used, I would say, but it's not common.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you can do is if you have 2. Especially, I think, in the Legacy version, we actually get to play lands that tap for black.
Right.
You'll see something like a player will swing, and then if there's a kill spell, he'll just throw the cranial plating onto the other creature.
Right. Or you can alpha through, and then the one guy that's unblocked, you throw the plating over to that one, deal the maximum damage. Yeah, there are definitely uses for it in theory, but normally it's just, equip for 1 to my unblockable dude, hit you for 10, and then the game ends. Are you looking up what the...
I am curious what the other ones are. We've got a couple people helping us out.
I knew that it was part of a cycle. That was before my time. I did not play Magic the Gathering at that point. But I do know that it was an embarrassing part of the cycle. It's kind of like how Ancestral Recall was part of the cycle.
Yeah, it's a little bit better than some of the other cards in the cycle.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have Cranial Plating as the black one in the cycle. You have Healer's Headdress, which gives your creature +0/+2 and makes it a Samite healer in white.
It prevents 1.
Yeah, it can prevent.
Okay.
It can prevent 1.
All right.
You have,
That's about
the
the
green
same.
one gives 1/1 and trample. It's not just
Wow.
trample. So that's Horned Helm.
Pumps power and toughness. That's broken.
Yeah. So actually, sorry, the Neurok Stealth Suit is the blue one. It just gives your creature Shroud.
That's all?
That's actually pretty good. You can move it at instant speed, so it's actually one of the better ones.
Sure. You can counter the removal.
Yeah, you can counter. Yeah, that's actually, I think, one of the better ones. And the red one's the worst one. It's Sparring Collar. It gives a creature first strike, and that's it.
Just first strike.
Just first strike, and it's the exact same cost as Cranial Plating.
Yeah, that's not as good.
That one, less
It's a
useful.
combo with Cranial Plating.
Yeah, you could play one Sparring Collar in your Affinity deck. That could be.
Give your Signal Pest first strike. All right, here we go. Jacob Wilson with a Delver of Secrets. The ideal turn 1, especially from the play.
Yeah, Jacob's on the play. Henry Romero is actually on 6 cards right now also.
All right. Affinity, sort of a critical mass deck and sort of a need specific cards deck. So 2 ways in which mulliganing hurts it, but 1 mulligan on the draw, not too bad. Looks like he even has a Thoughtcast in his hand to get back out of it.
Yeah, so we're gonna see the pre-spell tank here, you know, trying to figure out just how many cards he can play. So we're gonna see Seat of the Synod into Springleaf Drum. He
All right.
is not done yet for the turn. You see Memnite, so now he has access to 1 mana again, 3 artifacts into play. He is 1 mana short, however, of casting Thoughtcast.
Yeah, looks like his hand is now Thoughtcast, Cranial Plating, Ancient Tomb, and Vault of Whispers.
It's a little heavy on lands. Jacob missing on the Delver of Secrets trigger.
But look what I mean. Henry was on the draw and has more permanents than Jacob.
Yeah, oh, definitely. He has 3 in play already. And Jacob being very careful here. It's like there's this giant engine on the other side of the board, and Jacob just has to pick apart a couple pieces of it. It looks like his plan here is to ponder and cast another Delver and set both of them up to flip next turn.
I like it. Do we know if he has an answer for the Cranial Plating that is impending?
Well, there aren't too many.
We
don't know if he has a counter
It
spell.
would be Force of Will, right?
Force of Will. It could actually be Daze here. There's a chance that because Henry's on the mulligan, he may not be able to play around Daze.
Sure.
I think thanks to Ancient Tomb, it's pretty much Force of Will or bust.
Yep. Spell Pierce plus Daze, make your own Force of Will?
Yeah, Spell Pierce plus Daze would be enough too.
Alright, so he does draw a random card from the Ponder. Playing a second land here. Gonna go with that second Delver. And passes the turn.
Yeah, so it's interesting he did not offer the Memnite for Delver of Secrets trade. I think the trade would have been declined anyway.
Yeah.
You see the draw from Henry Romero is Mox Opal. Had he had that one on turn 1, he would have had the turn 1 Thoughtcast.
Wow.
So right now Thoughtcast, it's really one of the less fair cards. It's 1 blue draw too. You know, something you'd never really print.
Certainly not. And yet, here we are.
And yet, here we are.
Reality.
Yes. And one of the benefits of playing Infinity is you get to play this card that's just really good. You get to have you get a 1 mana divination.
Yeah. That's almost as good as Brainstorm.
You know, I would say if this was just a 1 mana divination, it would be better than Brainstorm.
Fine, you got me.
Yeah. This is, Brainstorm, Shrug. Affinity gets to play, it has its own 1 mana blue spell.
Yeah.
It's pretty good too.
Absolutely, and the cards he drew off of it were pretty good as well. Looked like a Tezzeret and a Spell Pierce. Not too bad.
Yeah, so one of the powerful things is thanks to cards like Springleaf Drum and Mox Opal and the Soul Lands, Henry is actually able to leverage his mana against the Rug Delver deck. You see here he has 5 mana on turn 2.
Yeah, very impressive. Looks like he is going to lead with that plating. Does not want to get the Tezzeret dazed. If this gets dazed, he can pay. If it does not, he gets to equip and attack this turn if he so chooses.
Yeah, so plating will be played and it'll be equipped to Memnite. Henry's going to swing Memnite.
Kind of priced into blocking here, right?
Well, we'll see. If he has a Lightning Bolt, Jacob can probably take the damage here.
All right. Take it once, attack back, bolt next turn.
If he flips both the Delvers, this is a race he could possibly win. Remember, Henry did shock himself for the Ancient Tomb, and the Memnite doesn't have lifelink. It's only, and I'm putting only in quotes, it's only a 6-1 here.
Fair enough, fair enough. Jacob, still at 20, could easily take a hit here.
He could potentially have 6 power of his own on the board.
Yeah. If he does have, any other blocker or removal spell that seems like a favorable race, and sure enough, he does take it.
All right, so the question is, remember that Ponder was shuffled.
The upkeep brainstorm.
Yeah. The question is he going to flip off it? And the joke is Jacob's gonna cheat to make sure they slip off.
Oh, that's unfair.
He's gonna go ahead and make sure there's a instant or sorcery.
That is unfair. He's supposed to be experimenting. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. Will they flip? Will
they
flip? Well, experiments are better when you fix the results. And he's gonna go ahead and do that.
All right, and now the race is on.
It's very unethical scientifically.
Yes, I would say so. At least he's testing on himself, though.
All right, so yeah, he's going to brainstorm. He'll show a Jataxian probe.
All right.
And now he has 2 3/2 flying insect humans.
And it looked like he does have a lightning bolt as well, so
yeah, I think
very strong draw from Jacob here.
It's not that often that Rug Delver can race Affinity. I think this is one of the few draws where he's actually going to be able to do it, though.
Yep, I mean, the lightning bolt is a full turn, and a pseudo time walk against the cranial plating, and double Delver hits very hard. With the Ancient Tomb 2 life loss, it's actually just a straight up 3-turn clock.
And Henry does not play Galvanic Blast or Dispatch in his board, in his deck, so he actually has no way to answer these Delvers. They're just going to continue to hit.
Yep. Looks like Jacob choosing to play a Tarmogoyf, likely looking to block and trade with the Memnite so that the lightning bolt can go to Henry's dome. If he draws, another lightning bolt that's 6 damage plus the 6 from the insectile aberrations, that would be instantly lethal.
Yeah. So more free spells for Henry. He drew a Frogmite, which is a 2/2 for 0. I always love it when
they would print that.
I love it when you describe Affinity's cards. They have, they have 4 damage for 1 red. They have a 1 blue to draw 2, and they have a 2/2 for 0. Really fair Magic cards.
Yeah. Not to mention an equipment that gives +10 +0.
Right. Oh yeah. There's equipment that's +10 +0, 2 to play, 1 to equip.
Yeah, that's all.
There's the deck is just.
It is silly.
It's excellent.
Yeah, it is some silly magic. Not quite Dredgeland silly, but quite silly.
I mean, this deck is, I guess, I was gonna start by saying at least this deck's casting its spells. Granted, spells sometimes cost 0.
Yeah.
It's kind of paying mana for its spells.
It's doing some sort of work, some sort of investment, right?
Yeah, so we'll see Henry put the free Frogmite into play. He's gonna have to cast this Tezzeret.
Yep.
It's gonna take him down to 10. Will it be enough, though?
That's the question. If you attack with the Memnite, the Tarmogoyf trades with it. You can actually use the Mox and the Springleaf Drum.
Yeah, I think what he's going to do is use Tezzeret to turn Memnite. Well, he could turn Memnite into a 5/5.
Turn anything into a 5/5, right?
Yeah, he could turn Memnite into a 5/5 and then force this trade here. The worry is that he'd be dead to a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, that's a bit scary.
Yeah, I don't think, even if he makes Memnite a 5/5, that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
drum.
10. It's only 12. It actually can't force a chump block. But by activating Springleaf Drum here, so Springleaf Drum is a 5, Memnite is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's exactly 13 damage.
Convenient.
Yeah, so had he made the Memnite into a 5/5, it would have been 12 damage. But by making Springleaf Drum into a 5/5, it's 13 and is going to force Jacob to block here.
All right. Well played by Henry again. Tarmogoyf likely going to jump in front of the Memnite, I would assume.
Yeah, he can either trade with the Memnite or chump the Springleaf Drum.
Plus it saves more damage. Jacob Wilson making sure that it is lethal so he can't just, take it and crack back.
Yeah, he's gonna have to block. And there's some discussion here with the judge. We'll see what's going on here. It may just be chatting.
Yeah.
We will confirm there for a second what's going on here. Jacob all smiles about it. All right, he's going to trade it with the Memnite. That means he will take 5, drop to 8.
The 0-mana creature trading for a Tarmogoyf.
Zero mana. Yeah, the Memnite trades for Tarmogoyf. It's really that's real.
Yep.
I mean, it's better than Tarmogoyf chump blocking the 1-mana artifact.
Yes, that is also true.
Taps creature to 1-mana like pseudo land.
All right, so now Jacob has to find a way to get 2 full attacks off.
Yeah, and Jacob didn't leave back the. He didn't leave open the mana of light for lightning bolt, and that may be coming to get. That may be biting him right now.
Yeah, I mean, he was saving the lightning bolt, hoping to go to the dome if he drew a second, but it could have been a big tempo boost here. That Tarmogoyf would still be in play.
Well, he can put Henry to 1, but the problem is 1 isn't 0. And actually, he's gonna. So if he doesn't go for the win here, he's gonna have to leave back a blocker.
Yeah.
Right. So he's gonna Jataxian probe himself down to 8 here. I think he's hoping to draw just another lightning bolt.
Yep.
He wants to know if he can kill this turn or whether he's gonna have to leave back a blocker.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the difference between 8 and 6 is too significant. I guess, 5 plus 2, a 5/5 plus the frog might end up mattering, but.
And now Jacob sees that the last card is Spell Pierce, and Henry does have the mana for it.
Wow, he drew the lightning bolt.
Oh my, and he had the land to go with it, and that's going to be enough. He cast the 2 lightning bolts at Henry, has the 2 lands up.
Look at that.
Jacob.
Basically a 3-outer.
On the 3-outer,
because the Spell Pierce, the Spell Pierce locked out a cantrip into that bolt. He couldn't have brainstormed into the bolt because of the Spell Pierce from Henry. So that was a raw 3-outer with, I suppose, 1 more redraw in the form of the other Gitaxian probe.
Yeah,
wow.
he could get another Gitaxian probe in there.
So a 1-outer with 1 or 2 redraws, sick.
Yeah, no, that
is sick.
That is excellent. So the players.
Well, I did say the way that Rug Delver was going to win is, stealing game 1, and if that's not stealing a game, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that was.
he had like near the best draw his deck possibly could muster, and then still needed to 1-outer.
Right.
Or a 3-outer, and did.
Yeah, so he managed to hit there. It's not. Jacob doesn't automatically lose.
No, but he is in a much worse situation. Much worse situation.
Yeah. All right. So while these players sideboard, we're gonna bring you back in the booth for more trivia. I'm gonna throw. I've been asking a lot of the questions here. I'm gonna actually throw it. If you want to throw out a question to our audience.
Okay.
All right.
I've discovered one.
All right. I'm gonna read off the rules while you're discovering one. Those of you just joining us, the rules are: AJ will ask a question. You will have until the end of the top 4 to answer it. You answer it by going onto Twitter and tweeting the answer and making sure that you have the hashtag SCG Premium, as you see on the bottom on your tweet. Then when the top 4 is concluded, we will randomly select one of the correct entries to win 6 months of Star City Games Premium. So with that said, lead us out.
All right. In our top 4, there is 1 Planeswalker.
Just one.
Just one, and it is a badass.
All right, well, that's your clue as to which one it is.
This really awesome Planeswalker that is, historically fairly underplayed, but still a fan favorite. That is my question.
Sneaking into maybe the main, maybe it's just the sideboard.
Yeah, you gotta look.
So this is wait, we actually have 2. So this is in the main deck or the sideboard? There are 2. There are 2.
Oh, it is the main deck one.
Okay, there's only 1 Planeswalker in the main deck of a top 8 deck. All right, you have to know which one it is. Remember, make sure that your response has the hashtag SCG Premium. You're wondering, what is the 1 Planeswalker in the main deck of one of our top 4 decks?
What is the badass?
What is the badass Planeswalker in the main deck of the top 4?
That's a good question, right?
I like it.
I'm pretty bad at questions, but I think I was good.
All right, well, let's talk about the matchup, though. So we already know that Affinity usually gets worse after boarding about every matchup that's ever been played since Affinity was a deck.
Yes, accurate, and this is no exception. Although there is not a ton of hate.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you'd normally expect it to be, right?
Right.
It's only 2 rough tumbles, and an ancient grudge.
Yeah.
That is.
It's not too much
He is
worse.
getting by. He is getting off light.
Yeah. Jacob Wilson's going easy on
You have to understand, in Modern, there's stuff like, well, they board in 3 ancient grudges. It's like, oh boy.
Yep. That is a thing. There was even the the creeping corrosions and the sideboard of some of the scape shift decks.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of cards like creeping corrosions in addition to the ancient grudges. You see things like Kataki.
People do not like losing to Affinity.
No.
And rightfully so.
No, well, the thing is, you read these cards, like Kataki, and you're just like, wow, I really want to cast this against an Affinity deck. This is, like, as fun as it is to play Affinity, it's equally fun to play cards like Kataki against Affinity. You just play it, and you feel like you're cheating, too, because all your opponent's permanents gain upkeep cost of 1.
Yeah, Kataki is the classic 60 for 1.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't just kill the things there isn't to kill their whole board. It kills the things they haven't played yet.
Which is just rude.
Right, just like, well, I can't even...
It's just rude.
Yep.
All right, so sideboard. We've gone over what Jacob Wilson's doing. I actually think that it's reasonable to bring in 1 Pyroblast if he has enough cards to take out. I know that when the Affinity deck used to play Master of Ethereum, I loved boarding in Pyroblasts because you had Thoughtcast, Master, and Tezzeret as the targets. And that is more than enough. With just Tezzeret and Thoughtcast, I don't know if you necessarily want both or either, but that is an option available to Jacob.
I think it depends on whether or not Jacob sees himself in a control role in this matchup.
Sure. Whether he thinks that the Tezzeret's going to be fast enough to race him.
Right.
Or whether he needs to run Henry out of threats.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of the few matchups where I think Rug Delver abandons its tempo plan. He has a lot of weak cards in the form of Stifled already to board out, so you might see him board in things like Pyroblasts. Like Pyroblasts.
Yeah, he may just have to.
Yeah, he may not have too many options.
Yep, I agree with that. Like, you might just leave in like 2 Stifles for value.
Yeah.
Like you can stop a Tezzeret activation or an Arcbound Ravager trigger.
On Henry's side, we may not see him board much of anything. He could board Whip Flares if he wanted to try to take out Delver of Secrets.
Doesn't seem like that's the role he's gonna be assuming here.
I would not be surprised to learn that he sideboarded nothing.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if it was nothing. Wouldn't be surprised if he went with Etched Champions. Just the 2 that he has on the board, pretty reasonable cards.
Yeah, when Jacob was trying to set up this board state where he was swinging with Delver of Secrets and chumping with Tarmogoyfs, Etched Champion does really put an end to that strategy.
Yes.
At the same time, it is a 3-mana spell against Rug Delver. I think that depends. Like, most decks don't want any 3-mana spells against Rug Delver. I think Affinity is one of the few decks that could actually, cast one.
Yeah, actually manage it decently well. I mean, for a deck that has 14 lands, it sure plays like it has a lot of mana available to it, thanks to things like Springleaf Drum and Ancient Tomb.
So, Henry is on the draw, chosen to be on the draw here, I believe.
Interesting. Oh, we got the wrong match. There we go. That would have been very confusing.
Henry's on the play, being down game 1. Apologies there.
All right, Henry looking over his hand wants to make sure that it is good to go. Looks like he's gonna keep it. Jacob Wilson pulling up his 7. Neither player super excited, but they are both going to keep.
So the best part of watching an Affinity player mulligan is you get to look at them, look at their opening hand, then they sit there for about 20 seconds, and then they tell you whether they're keeping or not. As they're just doing, they're planning out the whole turn. So let's see, permanent count. We see Seed of the Synod, Mox Opal, Vault Scourge. Now he has another mana.
It is metal crafted. Mox Opal is active.
He has both a Tezzeret and a Thoughtcast. The Thoughtcast is going to be 1 mana away from being able to be cast. So it may just be 3 permanents on turn 1.
Just 3. Mox Opal is a card that actually gained a little boost from the new Legend rule.
Yeah, it used to be when your second Mox Opal was a completely dead card.
It just locked you out.
Well, until you drew Arcbound Ravager, it was completely terrible.
Or the 3rd Mox.
Now you can get at least or the 3rd Mox, yeah. That real statement.
It happens,
man. No, the problem is it was a real statement. But now you can just get more fast mana with the Moxes if you wanted.
Yep, use them as little lotus petals.
All right, and here comes the rest of Henry's hand. We'll lead off with a Thoughtcast, the quintessential 1 mana draw 2.
Yep. Looks like Jacob actually considering Forcible in this. Is this still on the stack?
Yeah, and I don't think he like he can't spell pierce it is the funny part.
Yeah.
And Henry largely bricked off that. He drew a second Glimmer Void and a Mox Opal. The 2 Glimmer Voids in his hand are really just dead cards here.
Yes, he's super mana heavy here. He does have a Tezzeret, which is obviously quite a relevant spell, but Jacob does have his threat already in play. Henry looking a little threat light with another Vault Scourge coming down. So this is the type of game that Jacob Wilson can definitely win, especially with an immediate Delver flip.
Yeah, and it looked like Henry had the option of paying 2 mana for the Vault Scourge, but instead he opted to play around Daze by leaving up his Mox Opal.
Yep, very reasonable. His own life total doesn't quite matter as much as Jacob Wilson's, especially when he has 2 lifelinkers in play. But awkwardly enough, Jacob Wilson's Insectile Aberration can't really race here.
Yeah, so we'll see whether or not he plays a defensive game. He's going to drop a fetch land and cast it. Looks like going for main phase Brainstorm, maybe reconsidering.
Yeah, he may think that Henry leaving up that Mox Opal, paying 2 life, instead of playing around Daze, was actually holding up a Spell Pierce. And he may not want to get his Brainstorm Spell Pierced here. So he may just play Nimble Mongoose or something and move on with the game.
Yeah, last game we saw Jacob really punished for not leaving up mana. He had a Lightning Bolt and didn't leave up mana for it. He can afford to tap out a bit this game because he has a Force of Will in hand.
Yeah.
But he's still playing very cautiously.
And you know, that makes sense. I mean, he's not under a ton of pressure right now. His hand is quite stacked. Henry is looking a little shy on action, you know, not having done anything too explosive.
Yeah.
Too scary.
Henry, unfortunately for him, he drew a 3rd Glimmer Void, so still all his action is concentrated in that Tezzeret Agent of Bolas. We may see, and what he's going to do is he's going to play around Daze here by making a mana with Mox Opal, Legend ruling it off the battlefield, and then casting
I was just talking about this.
Yeah, and then going for Tezzeret. So he's playing around Daze this way. It was the only way he could do that. The trick is it's not Daze he's supposed to be playing around. It's Force of Will, which you can't play around.
Yep, it is the hard counter.
So Force and Ponder trade for Mox Opal and Tezzeret. It's actually a 2-for-2 because of how Henry cast the spell. But more important than card advantage is that it's the only business spell that Henry had.
The only relevant card in Henry's entire game. Jacob Wilson is going to run that Brainstorm end step with the fetch land up, ready to go, shuffle away anything he doesn't need. Looks like he's got a pair of Lightning Bolts at the very least, so some action for Jacob. I was like, what a Fire Ice be on those Vault Scourges.
Yeah, if you can find them like Fire Ice,
anytime
that would be excellent.
Anytime somebody gets the full 2 out of a Fire Ice, it just makes me so happy.
That'd be very strong if he can find it. Jacob already looking pretty good on the board. What he needs to be cognizant of is he was this far ahead last game on the board.
Even further ahead, I would say.
I would say he was even further ahead. And then it was 1 top deck and the equation changed.
Yes.
So Jacob proactively using the Lightning Bolt. This will possibly open him up to a Cranial Plating. To be fair though, because Henry has 5 mana, he can't actually Lightning Bolt around a Cranial Plating anyway.
Right. Well, I think that it was, just an efficient mana usage. Like, he also could have attacked, seeing if Henry's going to double block, which I can't imagine he was going to. But yeah, that end step mana was not going to be used anyway. You might as well use it while you can, as he is operating somewhat light here.
All right, so Jacob's going to tap out here. He taps out for a 2nd Delver of Secrets and a Nimble Mongoose after hitting Henry down to 14, thanks to the Insectile Aberration. Henry, for his turn, draws another really fair thought cast.
Yeah.
He's going to tap 1 land to get 2 more cards.
One of the better draws that you could have when you are light on action.
He draws the final Glimmer Void and Seed of the Synod.
Not ideal.
Yeah,
Not ideal at all, and facing down quite a bit of pressure from Jacob Wilson.
In a deck with 14 lands, Henry now has half of them.
That's a lot. Not to mention 2 of his 4 Mox Opals.
Yeah, 2. So a lot of the mana in his deck. The deck really plays about 22 lands. It plays Springleaf, Drums, and Mox Opals. But this is certainly a pretty bad flood for him here. He's going to swing with Vault Scourge and set the life totals of 16 to 15, but he's going to take a pretty hard hit next turn. Jacob flips the Delver of Secrets off of Daze. Daze not really a card, but Delver turning into a 3-2 certainly is.
Absolutely. Looks like 4 cards in the yard, so the Mongoose still has some growing up to do, but 2 Insectile Aberrations, quite large, and this attack is actually for half of Henry's life total.
Yeah, Henry will drop to 7 here. He's on what is probably a 2-turn clock thanks to the life gain off Vault Scourge.
Oh, looks like we missed that life gain.
Yeah,
so
and the life gain
at
from
8.
last turn, so he's still at 8.
But another Nimble Mongoose in Jacob Wilson's hand, and maybe even another Lightning Bolt, that would be the difference. That would indeed make this a 1-turn clock from here.
So, post-combat, Jacob's deciding how much he wants to commit here. He passes back. It's possible he's playing around in Engineered Explosives. I don't think if there was, or a Whip Flare, right? He has access to the deck list, so he does know.
Whip Flare is the card.
And Henry hits land number 8 on his draw that turn. That's
Perfect.
A Vault of Whispers. Now over half lands in his deck have been seen.
Very unfortunate for Henry in what I have to assume is a favorable matchup.
Yeah, it's looking like he's not going to be able to pull this one out, but he's going to try anyway. The Vault Scourge swings in, puts Jacob down to 15. Henry goes up to 9. And his hand is a trio of Glimmer Voids.
3 of a kind, dealer. What do I get?
All right, so Jacob's going to go ahead and swing. That'll drop Henry down to 2. That works. Jacob is going to...
He's actually going to accidentally slow roll here because Spell Pierce is a thing.
Yeah, because Spell Pierce swing, so it's not being impolite. It's going to go ahead and cast the Ponder here.
Yep. Just going to, play correctly. We know that Henry is dead, but Jacob does not know this, does not have such luxuries.
Yeah, I mean, he knows that Henry has cards that are not threats in his hand. If I were Jacob, I'd actually assume there's a Spell Pierce here.
Yeah.
I would think it's unlikely that Henry would have 3 lands,
Yeah.
so I would actually play around the Spell Pierce, which is what Jacob's doing.
Absolutely.
It turns out that Henry just has
It's
more
just
lands.
bricks. And...
His draw of the turn is the ever-valuable Vault Signal Pest.
Ah, yes. Just what he's been waiting for.
Yeah, now he's going to be dead on board. As he can't actually stop the 2 Insectile Aberrations. Signal Pest has the Treetops ability where it can only be blocked by flyers, but is not actually a flyer itself.
A strange ability in Magic history.
It's actually one of the few abilities that hasn't been keyworded. I know it's called like Treetops.
Yeah, Treetop Bracers.
Treetop Bracers is, I think, the first card that did it. Like Sohana Ledgewalker does it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely a couple. And there's the hand.
All right, so Jacob Wilson, 2-0, moves into the finals, defeating Henry Romero's Affinity deck.
Very politely not still had all using him with the Lightning Bolt.
Still had this Lightning Bolt, I just didn't cast it at you. Very classy game.
Yes.
I think Jacob Wilson knows that he dodged a pretty tough matchup there.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, he points at the Whip Flares that Henry did indeed bring in. Jacob saying, yep, playing around those. Those are definitely scary.
All right, so Jacob, 2-0 over Sean Yu, 2-0 over Henry Romero. Will he be able to complete the perfect sweep through the top 8? He'll be facing either Brian Weller Gordon's Blue-White-Red Delver deck or Spencer Sacked Lunt's Elf deck.